is the Panama Canal. It's 100 years old. These are the original gates, the original locks. It was an amazing feat of engineering. It was designed by the French, finished by the Americans.
Something massive is taking shape in Mexico, quietly, strategically, and with world-changing potential. For over a century, one man-made marvel has controlled how global trade moves between oceans. Now, that dominance is being challenged. Deep in a narrow stretch of land few ever notice, Mexico is constructing something that could rewrite the rules of shipping and shift the balance of global power. What started as a forgotten idea is becoming a bold new reality, and what's unfolding there might just change how the world moves everything. The question is, why now? And what's really driving it? Cracks in the global trade machine. Global trade is at a crucial crossroads. For over a century, major waterways and established routes have handled the flow of billions of tons of cargo. But the strains are becoming impossible to ignore. Ships keep getting larger, trade volumes have exploded, and supply chains face pressures from unexpected delays and environmental challenges. These factors expose significant bottlenecks in the existing infrastructure that underpin international commerce. The world's most vital maritime passages are hitting their limits. Even massive engineering marvels, originally designed for early 20th century cargo sizes, are struggling to keep pace with today's demand. Restrictions on vessel size, unexpected maintenance delays, and environmental changes like droughts have created unpredictable backups. For ports and shipping companies, these issues translate into higher costs and longer transit times. Consider the impact of natural factors. Droughts have recently forced key maritime hubs to cut down the number of ships they allow through, transforming those vital arteries into choke points. This kind of disruption doesn't just inconvenience shipping companies, it cascades throughout global supply chains, affecting everything from retail inventories to manufacturing timelines. The modern economy depends on smooth, reliable shipping, and any interruption can ripple worldwide. Most people assume that once an industry is established, it is nearly impossible to rewrite the rules. Yet, the pressure for alternatives grows each day. Shipping giants and governments alike face a daunting question. What happens when the current solutions just can't handle tomorrow's realities? New ideas must rise, not just to compete, but to ensure the resilience of global trade for decades to come. Despite these mounting challenges, many trade routes continue to function near capacity, delaying investments into alternatives because old infrastructure simply carries on out of necessity. However, the window to act is closing, and a bold vision for shifting the flow of goods is emerging. That vision starts with looking back at an overlooked piece of history and reimagining what's possible. This growing strain on global trade infrastructure signals more than inconvenience. It's a call to action. If the world doesn't adapt, the risks are profound. Soaring transport costs, supply chain vulnerabilities, and weakened economies in regions that depend heavily on maritime commerce. The search for innovative, scalable solutions has never been more urgent. Amid this backdrop, some projects promise not just relief, but transformation. They challenge the idea that maritime shipping must revolve around a handful of channels vulnerable to climate and congestion. These initiatives suggest alternatives that could decentralize trade routes, creating new corridors for faster, larger volumes of cargo. At the heart of these developments is a region many overlook, Mexico's narrow stretch of land, which offers a natural shortcut between two oceans. This geographic advantage has been slowly gaining renewed attention, but only now is it being harnessed on a scale that might genuinely disrupt the status quo. The most important details about this plan are worth waiting for. Before diving into what Mexico is building now, it helps to understand the echoes from the past. History contains clues not only about what was, but about what could be again, only bigger, smarter, and more connected. That story begins with one of the earliest transport routes across the Americas. A forgotten link in history. In the late 18th century, long before the Panama Canal changed everything, Mexico was working on its own solution to link two oceans. The narrow landmass called the Isthmus of Tehuantepec caught the attention of then-President Porfirio Diaz. His vision was straightforward: build a railway that would efficiently transport goods between the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. By 1907, just 7 years before the Panama Canal opened, Mexico had a functioning railway line capable of hauling cargo across this narrow corridor. For a brief moment, this railway positioned Mexico as a key hub in international shipping. Trade surged, economies along the route flourished, and the idea of a viable shortcut gained real momentum. But this early success was short-lived. When the Panama Canal opened in 1914, shipments shifted almost overnight. The canal offered a water solution that appeared faster and more convenient, immediately drawing traffic away from Mexico's railway. Cargo volumes on the Mexican rail line plummeted by 80% in just 1 year, sending the once promising corridor into rapid decline. Over the following decade, the railway became nearly obsolete, largely abandoned as the canal continued its rise to global dominance. What had seemed like a breakthrough turned into a forgotten path, a relic left to rust. The potential that Mexico's corridor held was diminished, buried under the shadow of an engineering marvel built thousands of kilometers to the southeast. On the contrary, the tale went on. In spite of the dip, the geographic benefit of Mexico was never lost. The isthmus still stood as the narrowest land bridge that connected the two oceans of North America, and the thought of joining the Atlantic and Pacific shipping through this way, though silently, still existed. It was a sprout that needed the right moment to blossom again. This narrative is very important, as it indicates how a region that once got less attention could again become the center of the world with the help of new technology, investment, and the right political climate. The past project's failure was not due to geography, but rather to timing and scale. What was in the beginning of the 19th century only an ordinary railway line might now turn into a huge, integrated corridor with the most efficient land and sea connection ever. The early periods taught us one important thing, and that is the global trade routes can move very quickly from one place to another if the pressure is applied in the right way. This could be through technology, economy, or politics. Thus, it is important to remember that every transportation route has a limited time to be used. Innovation always brings changes along with it, and the past tends to reenact itself in larger forms. Mexico has been dreaming for centuries of connecting its oceans. This is certainly not just a whimsical thought, but a thing of the past. A belief that one day, with the help of a creative government and modern technology, it can be turned into an event-changing reality. To understand just how revolutionary this could be, it's important to look closely at the waterway that has dominated the region for more than a century. The Panama Canal's century-long dominance. The Panama Canal is one of the greatest engineering achievements of the modern era. Completed in 1914, it transformed the shipping world by cutting the journey between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans from thousands of miles around South America to just under 800 miles through Central America. This shortcut saved time, money, and countless risks at sea. Constructing the canal was no easy feat. Builders faced landslides, scorching heat well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and deadly diseases like malaria and yellow fever. They didn't just dig a simple channel. Engineers created an intricate lock system, massive water elevators that lifted ships over a continental divide. The project took a decade and cost what would now be roughly $1 billion. Once opened, the canal quickly became the beating heart of international maritime commerce. Today, over 10,000 ships pass through it annually, hauling more than 500 million tons of cargo. Its importance to global trade is hard to overstate. Few depend on any single route as heavily as the Panama Canal. However, the canal now faces serious challenges. Ships have gotten larger, often exceeding the size limits even after major expansions. Trade volumes continue to grow, pushing the canal closer to its maximum capacity. In 2023, prolonged drought forced Panama to reduce the number of ships allowed through, exposing the waterway's vulnerability to climate impacts. These capacity and environmental issues have real consequences.
The chambers of these new locks have 427 meters of usable length.
Delays build up, costs climb, and shipping companies face uncertainty. The canal's limitations pose risks not just for Panama's economy, but for the global supply chains dependent on efficient maritime transport. The world's most crucial maritime shortcut is showing signs of strain. Despite investments to expand and modernize, the canal may no longer keep pace with the evolving demands of international trade alone. This creates an opportunity for new alternatives that could ease the strain or provide parallel routes to keep goods flowing without interruption. While the Panama Canal remains vital, opening the door for competition and innovation could ultimately strengthen the entire global network. The coming years could see a historic realignment in how continents connect, where Mexico's long-dormant corridor may finally find its moment to shine. With this understanding of the current shipping landscape and the legacy of the Panama Canal, the stage is set to look at the bold plans Mexico is now pursuing to reclaim its role as a central player in global trade. Mexico's revived vision. More than a century after its original railway was eclipsed, Mexico is daring to dream big once again. In 2018, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador decided to revive and vastly expand the idea of an interoceanic corridor across the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. But this is no mere refurbishment of an old line. It's a grand-scale, multimodal mega-project designed to transform the nation's role in global trade. The new plan involves building 3 major railway lines stretching over 1,000 kilometers, running alongside modern highways. What truly sets this corridor apart are the brand-new deep-water ports planned at both ends, on the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. These ports will accommodate the largest cargo ships, including those too massive to fit through the Panama Canal, creating unprecedented maritime access. President López Obrador's vision goes far beyond transport. It aims to link seaports, railroads, and highways into an integrated system, allowing containers to move swiftly across Mexico. The goal is simple, yet powerful. Cargo arrives on one coast, is transferred onto trucks or trains, and then exits the other coast in record time, effectively creating a shortcut around the long, often perilous route through the Panama Canal. This resurrected corridor is already being called a potential game-changer. Its scale and ambition go hand in hand with optimism that it can relieve strain on traditional routes while propelling Mexico to the center of international shipping networks. If successful, it could redraw trade flows across the Americas, Asia, and beyond. However, making such a bold vision a reality isn't without controversy. When construction began in 2020, Mexico moved swiftly, replacing old rails and clearing vegetation to lay down fresh steel tracks.
20,000 workers died of malaria and yellow fever constructing this.
A contentious moment arose when a stretch of the railway belonging to a private company became a roadblock. Rather than delay the project, the government sent in the army to seize control of the land, an unmistakable sign of how urgent and serious this initiative is. The use of this powerful strategy not only indicates a logistical obligation, but it also highlights the importance of the project in the national identity of Mexico. For López Obrador, the corridor is nothing less than the future of the nation. It shows the tattoo of commitment to growth, regional development, and new commerce that Mexico lost over a century ago. Mexico's revitalized dream has also taken into account the current challenges of the day. The larger vessels that cannot pass through the locks at Panama have found a possible rerouting through here, and the shippers that want to reduce their transit times may discover that this land bridge saves them several days. The corridor is associated with speed and flexibility, which may be an attractive feature for companies that want to set up new supply chains due to the current limitations. Nonetheless, this daring endeavor encounters serious issues that range from logistics to environmental matters and public acceptance. The potential is very large, but the difficulty of integrating such massive scales of rail, road, and ports leads to ambiguity about both the timelines and the results. However, the persistence of Mexico indicates that such challenges are just hurdles and not barriers. To fully grasp how this transformation works, it is crucial to see how the corridor's components interlock to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The multimodal corridor design. At the heart of this mega project lies a sophisticated multimodal transportation corridor that seamlessly integrates railroads, highways, and deep water ports into one connected system. Spanning more than 1,000 kilometers across Mexico's narrowest point, the corridor weaves together three major rail lines alongside modern highways. This integration allows both freight and passenger transport to move with remarkable speed and efficiency, reshaping how goods and people traverse the country from ocean to ocean. The design itself offers a strategic advantage that few regions in the world can match. Cargo can transition smoothly from ship to land and back again with minimal delays. Picture a massive container ship docking on Mexico's Gulf Coast, unloading its cargo at a newly constructed deep-water port. Within hours, those same containers are loaded onto high-speed trains or trucks and transported across the isthmus to the Pacific.
Each lock chamber will have 3 water-saving basins, which will enable using 7% less water.
Ready for immediate reloading onto ships bound for Asia or other markets. Anchoring this corridor are 2 new state-of-the-art deep-water ports, true game-changers in international shipping. Built to accommodate the world's largest vessels, including those too large for the Panama Canal, these ports place Mexico directly on the map of global maritime trade. They serve as twin gateways connecting the country's Atlantic and Pacific coasts to international trade lanes, giving shipping companies a fast, flexible alternative that avoids existing constraints and capacity limits. Rail infrastructure plays a pivotal role in this design. The 3 rail lines enable high-capacity, high-speed transfers, allowing freight to move continuously across multiple tracks. This design enhances not only efficiency, but also resilience. If one route experiences delays or maintenance, others can handle the load, ensuring uninterrupted flow. The corridor's redundancy reduces the risk of bottlenecks and improves reliability, both critical for global logistics operations that depend on precise timing. Parallel highways complement the rail system, adding versatility and accessibility. Trucks can handle shorter hauls, regional deliveries, or reach destinations that trains cannot easily access. This combination of rail and road creates a dynamic, multimodal network that accommodates diverse cargo, from industrial goods and energy supplies to agricultural exports. The integration of these transport modes serves local industries while connecting them directly to international markets, expanding economic potential for businesses large and small. Beyond cargo, the corridor also features a modern passenger rail service launched in late 2023. Sleek new trains carry travelers across breathtaking landscapes, from the lush Gulf Coast plains to the rugged Pacific mountains, in a matter of hours. This passenger service opens new doors for tourism and cultural exchange, turning what was once purely a freight route into a vibrant link for people, culture, and commerce. Speed remains one of the corridor's defining advantages. Compared with the long detours of maritime routes or delays caused by droughts and maintenance in existing canals, this land bridge offers a faster, more predictable alternative. For shipping companies racing against delivery deadlines, the ability to move containers across Mexico in a single day could mean millions saved in fuel, storage, and labor costs. However, coordinating such a vast and intricate system demands world-class logistics management. Synchronizing port arrivals, train schedules, highway traffic, and customs procedures across multiple agencies and regions presents a formidable challenge. Success will require cutting-edge technology, robust infrastructure, and international collaboration. If Mexico manages to harmonize these moving parts, the interoceanic corridor could become a new model for global supply chain innovation. By uniting sea, rail, and road into one coherent system, it demonstrates how strategic geography, when paired with modern design, can transform a nation's economic landscape. Mexico's grand plan is bold and complex, but the real story lies in what it means for the people and economies who will live alongside this corridor. Economic and social impact. The interoceanic corridor of the Isthmus represents far more than a transportation initiative. It is a catalyst for profound social and economic transformation. Stretching across one of Mexico's historically poorest and least developed regions, this project carries the potential to breathe new life into local economies that have endured decades of neglect. By channeling infrastructure, investment, and opportunity into these areas, the corridor aims to bridge the persistent divide between Mexico's urban centers and its rural communities. At the heart of this transformation lies the promise of job creation. The project is expected to generate approximately 500,000 new positions across sectors, including construction, logistics, port operations, and tourism. For a region long burdened by unemployment and economic stagnation, these opportunities could prove transformative, enabling thousands of families to achieve stability and prosperity. The influx of steady work may also strengthen local economies by increasing spending power, supporting small businesses, and revitalizing community life. The corridor's development also signals an unprecedented wave of investment. With projections of up to $50 billion in both foreign and domestic capital, the project will not only enhance port and rail infrastructure, but also spur the growth of related industries, manufacturing, warehousing, energy, and services. As these sectors expand, the corridor could evolve into a major economic ecosystem, shifting the region from a logistics route into a diversified industrial and commercial hub. However, the impact of the corridor reaches far beyond economic metrics. Improved infrastructure will expand access to essential services such as healthcare, education, and markets. Roads and railways that connect isolated communities to national and international networks can break long-standing cycles of poverty and geographic isolation. For many residents, the corridor represents not just the movement of goods, but the movement of people toward opportunity and inclusion. In the transformation, tourism will also be the most important factor. The inauguration of the passenger trains in 2023 allows tourists to enjoy the region's natural beauty and historical sites.
Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador announced on Monday passenger train routes will return soon.
This change in the transport system will make it possible for eco-friendly tourism to be established in the area, and that would indeed be the case if local cultures, arts and crafts, and festivals were the main attractions in the area, while at the same time bringing income and pride to the local communities. Despite the challenges, the project has great promise. A close watch over the economic gains would be necessary to ensure that they would be inclusive and thus sustainable. Local participation would be very important. People living there have to be co-beneficiaries of the development, not mere observers or victims of eviction. The teaching of new skills, the adoption of fair labor practices, and the launching of environmental initiatives would be the means that would guarantee that wealth would be evenly and wisely distributed. Environmental issues are also major concerns. Massive constructions are risky for delicate ecosystems, the water supply, and animals' living places. To coexist with nature during the process of making it harder for the future population living in that area, it will be a necessity for the authority to be open and give clear reasons for their actions, hold each other accountable, as well as make plans that last a long time. The measuring of success will be both by the building of the corridor and its good impact on the natural and cultural richness of the region. If Mexico keeps this balance, the interoceanic corridor could be a great example of sustainable development for the world, showing that infrastructure can not only facilitate trade, but also empower people. Initiating trade can not only create new economic opportunities, but can also uplift millions who were previously marginalized by connecting them to a new era of growth, dignity, and hope through reconstruction. Moving from the hopeful social vision to the harsh realities of making it happen, the project's progress has sparked intense political will and some controversy. Political determination and challenges. Mexico's bold pursuit of the interoceanic corridor has been driven by extraordinary political will and decisive action, an intensity rarely seen in major infrastructure projects. The government has committed vast resources, authority, and focus to overcome barriers that might have derailed lesser efforts. Yet, such determination has not come without controversy, opposition, and difficult trade-offs. In 2020, as construction gained momentum, one of the project's biggest challenges emerged. A section of the old railway was owned by a private company that refused to relinquish control. This standoff threatened to delay the entire corridor, potentially undermining years of planning. Rather than engage in drawn-out negotiations, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador authorized the military to seize the railway, sending a clear message about the government's resolve and its willingness to act unilaterally in defense of what it viewed as a matter of national importance. The move sparked alarm among critics, who denounced it as authoritarian and a violation of private property rights. However, supporters countered that the intervention was essential to protect a project of strategic, regional, and economic significance. It underscored the administration's stance that national development would take precedence over corporate hesitation or bureaucratic inertia. This political determination reflects a broader ambition to reaffirm Mexico's sovereignty and control over its economic future. For decades, foreign and private interests have held influence over vital transport routes. By ensuring that the corridor remains under national oversight, the government seeks to build a self-reliant trade artery, one capable of serving Mexico's long-term geopolitical and economic goals. Still, political will alone cannot overcome every obstacle. Environmental organizations continue to voice strong concerns about the corridor's potential ecological footprint, urging greater transparency and safeguards to minimize harm. Managing these issues requires balancing growth with sustainability, an increasingly delicate equation in the modern era. From an operational perspective, the corridor is also having to deal with very big logistical problems. The customs procedures coordination, port operations alignment, and all the steps taken to streamline the rail connectivity are all going to be complex tasks, requiring a lot of planning and cooperation among the different agencies. Any slips in this process could not only delay, but also put investor confidence to the test. Another factor in the equation is the local communities that are involved. On one hand, the promise of employment, infrastructure, and revitalization is welcomed by some residents, while others are afraid of being displaced, losing their culture, or having the environment devastated. Handling these conflicting priorities is a real challenge to the government's capability of advancing while still keeping the public's trust. Financial sustainability still hangs in the balance. The world has invested billions, yet the survival of such a vast network will be dependent on continuous traffic flow and astute financial management. The issue of when to realize profits and when global shipping volume is going to be steady troubles the minds of both the planners and the investors very much. Nevertheless, the Mexican government is still rock solid through all these hurdles. Their support is not only a case of wanting to finish a project, it captures a dream of national revival and independence in strategy. The interoceanic corridor is a hallmark of the country's resolve to change its role in international trade. No matter if it is praised or condemned, it still serves as proof of the hard nature of the political will in forming a nation's future. With determination fueling progress amid these complexities, the real test will be how global trade responds, setting the scene for a potential reshaping of shipping routes worldwide. Future of global shipping. The interoceanic corridor of the Isthmus stands poised to reshape the future of global shipping in ways few could have anticipated only a few years ago. For more than a century, the Panama Canal has dominated the maritime route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, serving as a critical artery of world trade.
One of the industrial wonders of the world, the Panama Canal, linking two of the world's great oceans.
Yet, as global commerce evolves and the canal faces mounting constraints, Mexico's new corridor is emerging as a formidable challenger, one capable of transforming long-standing shipping dynamics and redefining the geography of trade. The corridor of Mexico must not be overlooked in any aspect in terms of flexibility and scalability, even though the Panama Canal is of tremendous significance worldwide. The configuration of the corridor permits mega-vessels, already too big for the locks of the canal, to not use the canal at all. In a matter of a few hours, containers can be disembarked on one coast, transported by truck or rail across the skinny piece of land, and reloaded on the other side. By this method of transfer, the time taken for transit is reduced, the bottlenecks are avoided, and a new route, which could largely change the way goods are transported between the oceans of the world, is created. The corridor, which acts as a safety valve for global trade, allows the most critical release when the Panama Canal is undergoing drought-induced water shortages, and maintenance and traffic congestion would be the other times. Under these circumstances, Mexico's infrastructure can handle excess shipments, saving expensive delays and keeping the supply chain flowing, which is why it is better to have the corridor built. The building of this secondary route has been a great contributor to the resilience of the whole logistics ecosystem, which is why global trade is no longer reliant on a single way through. Competition between the corridor and the canal stands to benefit the entire shipping industry. If Mexico's route proves faster, cheaper, or more reliable on specific trade lanes, shipping companies will naturally reallocate their traffic. That competition could spur Panama to modernize and innovate further, creating a healthy rivalry that drives efficiency, technological advancement, and environmental improvements across both systems. The corridor's potential extends far beyond freight. With passenger trains introduced in 2023, Mexico signaled its ambition to use the corridor for broader connectivity. Travelers can now cross the isthmus while enjoying breathtaking landscapes and local culture, turning what was once a logistical project into an engine of regional development and tourism. This integration of trade and travel represents a holistic vision of progress, blending economic and cultural benefits. The corridor shows that global trade no longer needs to depend on a single choke point. It offers a credible alternative and expands global routes, reducing exposure to political risk, climate disruptions, and infrastructure breakdowns. This diversification is not just smart, it's essential in a world facing unstable weather, fragile supply chains, and rising demand. Still, the corridor's future depends on adoption. Global shippers must weigh logistics, regulations, and sustainability, while Mexico must maintain security and stability. If successful, the interoceanic corridor could spark a new era of infrastructure investment, linking sea, rail, and road into one system. This isn't just a shortcut, it's a turning point. Mexico has moved from observer to active player in global trade, shaping a future where nations compete and cooperate through innovation and connectivity. The next chapter of commerce may not flow through familiar waters. It may cross Mexico's narrow stretch of land, redefining how the world moves. Mexico's bold corridor is more than infrastructure. It's a direct challenge to over a century of global trade norms. Offering unprecedented speed, scale, and resilience, it has the potential to shift supply chains, reshape economies, and open new doors for global opportunity. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into world-changing projects. And when you're done here, don't miss the next video appearing on your screen. It takes this story one step further into what's coming next.